Hey guys, welcome to Earthit. Hope all of you are safe and healthy. So today let's look at how I'm going to revamp my 8-year-old terracotta jewel which I unfortunately broke recently. So for this, the first material that we'll require is a terracotta clay, and I always prefer to store it in a kitchen towel or paper towel while I'm working with it. And if you want to store it for a longer time, you can also use Ziploc. Now, if you have these set of tools, it's okay. If you don't have, it's completely okay. And even empty pen will do the job. So we'll be using very simple materials to create our pattern. The next one is a nichrome wire. This is a must have if you're planning to go up with a terracotta jewelry. This is called a nichrome wire. Next, we'll require 3 pliers. The first one is a side cut plier, the next one is a flat nose plier, and the third one is a round nose plier. So if you notice, the tip of a round nose plier is more on a conical shape. The next material is you can use wooden toothpicks or skewers as well. So this we'll be using to create patterns and paintings. The next one is eye pin. So in order to create a base, we'll spread a plastic sheet and we'll grease it up with oil. Make sure there are no bubbles. And in order to prepare the clay, we can either knead it completely or we can also use a rolling pin and kind of spread the clay. So this way the clay is really nice and it spreads out really well without any lumps in it. Now, if you're going to prepare a terracotta jewelry, any type of dollar maybe, it has to be at least 0.5 centimeters thick because terracotta clay shrinks as it dries. So make sure that the clay is a little thick while you're going to work with it, and check if the clay or is very easy to remove, and make sure to smudge the edges really well. You can also use water just like how we do in a molding clay. Next, we'll use different types of materials, whatever is available with us to create patterns. So over here, I'm using the base of a pen. So if you see that while removing the clay, there are high chances for us to, remove the clay or smudge the clay from the pattern. So if that is the case, you can again rub the clay so that it sets up within the place, and you can again create the pattern using the same thing, like how I'm tapping over here, so that the clay sets out really well. So for example, over here, while I removed, the clay got smudged, so I'm just dipping my fingers in water and smudging them or smoothing them, so this way the clay sets well. Make sure to just create the patterns which you like, and creating impression is the art that's used in terracotta jewelry, and that's the highlight in terracotta jewelry, because after you bake, you will have this beautiful pattern that's going to be seen out once you color them. In order to poke holes in them, we'll dip the toothpick in water and start drilling them. Drilling them is very important. If you're going to push the clay or push the toothpick within, there are high chances for the clay to get deformed. And make sure to tap the top and bottom. If you're planning to go for a lot of beads or a large quantity of beads, you can just spread the clay into a cylindrical format and then start dividing them. You can also prepare cylindrical beads or conical beads, completely creative and your choice. So in order to prepare a large quantity of beads of equal size, we'll be spreading them in a cylindrical manner and we'll divide them and start rolling them. In order to prepare smaller beads, we'll just roll it up in an empty container like this. It's going to give us a perfect sphere every time. So this way all your spheres are going to be uniform and equal. This was the trick that I use in general. And in order to prepare the holes for these tiny beads, you can also use an eye pin. If you're going to use an eye pin, the thickness of a gear wire is more than enough. And if you're going to go for a cotton string, use a toothpick to drill through, and make sure to tap the top and bottom so that the excess clay is well set. Next, in order to fix the beads to the terracotta jewelry, we'll be using nichrome wire. So this is where the role of nichrome wire comes. So in order to prepare patterns, like additional patterns that you would have noticed in a lot of terracotta jewelry, we'll be using the nichrome wire to fix, and make sure that the wire is parallel, and make sure that you do not move the angle of the wire up and down, so that it comes out or comes at the back or comes from the top. Next, in order to fix a dangling effect, if you want to add a bead or something like that which has to dangle, we'll be using a nichrome wire and a round tip in order to give a nice and U shape. So this is how you have to fix them. This is not the size for this bead, this is apt for this, so make sure that the proportion is right as you fix. We'll be using an eye pin to fix the terracotta jewelry with a string. So this is how we have to be a little careful in this step, because the eye pin is a little long. We have to keep it parallel and make sure that it doesn't poke out or go back. So we have to check on a constant basis, and we have to carefully insert the pin so that it sets really well. Once it's set, we'll be adding a little more of terracotta beads at the top and bottoms. Have a little free time, then you can prepare these beads, and you can probably use them while you're being creative. It saves a lot of time. At the same time, it will kind of not deform. So imagine if you're going to prepare a terracotta bead at that particular time and add them to your jewelry, it will take a little time and it will deform if you're going to add a little amount of pressure, wherein the dried beads will not have that hindrance, and it will be easy for us to prepare our pattern. In order to prepare the dangling effect which I was mentioning earlier, this is how I have connected 2 to 3 beads. We'll be using the same nichrome wire, cut in a U shape, insert the bead inside and insert them slowly into our terracotta jewelry. So this will have that free movement as you move. You can use any sharp object like this to push the beads inside. This is for a clarity. You can just push the beads further in so that even the nichrome wire is not evidently seen. Now let's get back to painting our old beads. I'm going to retain the beads. I'm just going to change the pendant and the pattern. So for that, the base color will be black. So if you have a freshly baked terracotta clay, terracotta pendant or jewelry, you can give a coat of diluted black color if you're planning for a different color concept. But mine is more on an antique look, so I have given a coat of black acrylic paint, just like that. You can dilute it in 1:10 ratio maybe. The ratio and proportion is completely your choice. So this is the proportion which I personally prefer. First method of painting the beads was stringing them, and the second method I would show you shortly. So for this I will be using golden dust by Fevicryl and medium by Fevicryl. So there is a trick in mixing the medium and golden dust as well, which I'll say you right now. So the second method will be using a wooden toothpick or a wooden skewer and place the bead right on top of it, like how I'm going to show you right now. So this is a skewer. I have placed the bead on top, and this method has a major advantage, which is we'll be able to cover the top and the bottom of the bead without any hindrance and without our hands getting dirtier. So I would prefer using this method. You will need at least a set of 10 to 20 toothpicks or skewers if you're going to use this method to color your beads. So the usage of these paints will also be pretty quick, and it will start drying quickly because terracotta absorbs a lot of moisture. The trick over here is you could see a cracked effect. So that is because I had a lot of medium when compared to the golden dust. If you're going to use an equal proportion of golden dust and medium, this is how clear the look will be. So this is the difference in mixing the proportions of medium and golden dust. This is the pendant again, which I made long back. I kind of like this pendant. I'm going to reuse this for my pendant over here. We'll use a flat brush. We'll dip the paint over here, and with each coat of paint we have to allow it to dry completely, else the paint will get smudged and the look will not be so neat. In order to finish and give a neat finish, we'll be covering with the sides as well. And in order to paint through the insides, we'll be dipping up fingers in paint and we'll be giving a very dry brush effect. I'm not gonna cover the black spots that are there, and I want that antique look and vintage look for this pendant. So I'm just dabbing my fingers in the paint and I'm just going to rub it like this. So this way the impressions that we created is going to last. At the same time, it's going to pop out and the paint is also going to finish up really well. The next step is, again, if you want to clear up the undulated surfaces, so if you want to clear up more detail, grab a size 0 brush and you can probably detail a little more of artwork in it. We are going to attach the gear wire. Unfortunately, it was not recorded while I was doing it in the earlier pendant, so I'll show you how I did it. the procedure for adding up a gear wire to a eye pin. So if you're going to take an eye pin, make sure that the position of the eye pin is like this. If it's going to be flat, then we'll not be able to place it really well and it will be evidently seen. This is a gear lock, so it will be circular like this. It's available in golden shade and silver shade as well. I'm using the golden one. So in order to fix the gear wire to the gear lock, we'll be adding 2 gear locks in it. It's for a lot of sturdity because we are going to hold the necklace and it has a good amount of weight. Next, we'll be inserting the gear wire inside the eye pin and we'll run the gear lock through the gear wire. So like how I have done over here, if you have a clear look at it, we are going to pull it close towards our eye pin. So it shouldn't be so close that it's sturdy, it shouldn't be too loose that it's evidently seen. So kind of push it a little well, maybe like 2 to 3 mm of gap is also more than enough, and we'll be pressing them with the help of a flat nose plier. So this way our gear lock fixes the gear wire to the jewelry. I had done the same procedure for both of these wires, and now let's start stringing our beads. Always remember to leave extra amount of wire on the opposite side and insert the beads through it for a lot of sturdity. These are the beads that's ready-madely available, and this suits the color concept of my jewelry, so I'm going to use them as a spacer. So you can probably try experimenting with different sizes and different shapes of our beads so that will give a really neat look. For me, I have used larger size beads and it shouldn't look so heavy, and at the same time it should cover a lot of space, so I'm using these tiny beads as spacers. Now once you're done using these, we'll be using a jump ring to conceal. So this is where we'll be using a lock and a jump ring to wear our necklace. So and now we'll be doing the same procedure like how we did with the eye pin. We'll be doing the same procedure by inserting the gear locks inside. We'll be placing our jump ring, or we can also place a lock inside like this. It has a small hole in it where you can insert them, and again we are going to insert these into a gear lock and push it close and make sure it's not so tight. There is a little free movement and press them with a flat nose plier. So this way we can easily finish our necklace. So our necklace is done, and I kind of really like this piece, and in order for the necklace to last longer, we have to spray paint. You can use decoupage varnish, you can use spray varnish, anything that is available. Make sure you're not getting too irritant to the skin. In order for different patterns, you can use silicone mold. So this is the product after placing that in a silicone mold, baking it and giving it a coat of acrylic paint. So again, this was done long back, and look at how I've painted the eye pin as well. This is an antique finish. I kind of really like this model, so I had given a coat of gold in it, then a coat of diluted black acrylic paint, and again rubbed my golden dust over it. And this is a neck piece which follows the same pattern with the silver dust. Now over here for the jhumkas, we can also use these types of molds, the plastic molds that's available. So this has different sizes and it will be easy for us to work. This is using 3 coats of acrylic color, the same concept, following a nichrome wire and eye pins. You can cut the eye pins as well, it's easier for us to cut it. And you can also work with nichrome wires and provide different types of beads, like the beads that kind of dangles and moves off really well. So you can play with different combinations of however you want. This is a cylindrical bead. I personally like the color concept, so you can play around with colors to create a very nice illusion effect. And make sure to cover the sides of a pendant as well. So this is the cotton string which I had mentioned earlier about. Next one is, in order to store, I prefer storing them in a wooden box and in a bubble wrap. You can also use sponge, but bubble wrap is a better option. And make sure that it stays in a good dry place, and if you want, you can also use the silica bags to space them. So hope this video was useful. Meet you guys in the next video. Until then, namaste.